Welcome to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast brought to you by Success Without Sacrifice. I am your host and coach, Cheree Sauer, and here on the podcast, we are on a mission to revolutionize the way women in insurance do business. We will be interviewing women who are changing the face of insurance, as well as giving you tips and inspiration to grow your agency to new heights without sacrificing what is most important to you. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast. Today, I have Carrie Soulliere with me. I'm so excited to dive in and talk to her and for you guys to hear this conversation. We are going to be talking about the unique niche that she has found for insurance and how that has just made her agency flourish. And we're going to talk about a little bit of self-care and all kinds of good stuff. Carrie, thank you so much for being here today. Would you just take some time and introduce yourself to our listeners, who you are, and a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me today. My name is Carrie Soulliere. I am licensed in most states. Resident state is Georgia, and I operate Covered with Carrie, which is a niche brokerage that specializes in ACA, Affordable Care Act insurance. I entered insurance about 5 years ago. I worked retail for 16 years, and honestly, my feet hurt. I was offered a buyout, and I decided I wanted to sell something else. And I wanted to sell something more gratifying, something actually good. I had sold many things in my life, shoes, boats, you name it, I've probably sold it. And I just wanted to sell something that was actually inherently good, truly. And when I was doing interviews, insurance was the one that felt the most right. So I entered from a captive P&C side, went and worked for a life insurance carrier, shamelessly used their education system to get some industry designations, get a really strong foundational understanding of life insurance. When I first opened my agency, I really thought it was going to be a life insurance focused agency, but I added Affordable Care Act insurance at a suggestion of Joanna Wyckoff, who works in the industry, and it really became the focus very quickly. It really did.
Awesome. And why did that become your focus? What about it kind of spoke to you or aligned with you?
First and foremost, that it's a really underserved market overall. I'd say ACA agents are the minority of all the lines of insurance. You know, there's a lot of people that sell car insurance. There's a lot of people that sell home insurance. There's a lot of people that sell life insurance. But there's not that many people that help in people that are, you know, in repressed markets enroll in health insurance because it's a high volume game. You have to really bring in big numbers for it to add up.
Yeah, I've heard that from had a conversation with some other people that do ACA, and like just the amount of processing that they do. I was like, oh my goodness, you know, just lots of long hours. So I'm curious. So how long have you been in insurance total?
About 5 years total. It'll be 5 years in October.
Okay, and then when did you decide to go out on your own and start your own agency?
I opened my agency April 1st, 2022.
Okay, so just about a year, and you've seen some really significant growth in the last year. So tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So in the beginning, it was a slow start. I'm just looking at my insights so that we can kind of talk about, you know, the first month I was in, I wrote 5 applications, then 6, then 7, and it just started building really slowly. And last open enrollment was really successful. I enrolled about 50 people a month. That's pretty good. But that was it, in my opinion, at the time. You know, open enrollment was over. Now I take care of my clients for the year and try again next open enrollment. But everything changed about 3 months ago. The whole trajectory of my agency changed. It's been amazing.
Okay, so tell us about that. What shifted? What changed? What happened?
My passion is whitewater. I love whitewater. It's saved me from so many things. If I always joked I needed to be an insurance agent so that I could afford to go to the river, so that I could afford to do my hobbies, so that I could afford. This year, since open enrollment was over, and my original plan was to go work it as a raft guide at the Ocoee River. I wanted to share my joy of the river with other people, take them down. I arrived and I helped the owner of the outfitter that I was working at with her insurance. And she just simply said, I didn't know that people did this for a living. I've been helping people enroll, but it's really confusing. And I said, I can help them. And the first round was just her outfitter. There's about 20 employees. Only 3 or 4 of them had health insurance through other venues. When we were done at the end of April of 2023, it was a 100% insured outfitter. Everybody there had health insurance.
Wow.
And that was kind of this moment. And I wrote them all the last day of the month. You know, they had a 4/1 effective date. So I wrote them in March, the last day of the month. She went to the cabins and you live on property when you're a raft guide, and grabbing them and saying, come here, you need health insurance, sit down, and bringing them to me. And nobody was really that into it, but they were doing it because their boss was telling them to. And they all qualified for free insurance, all of them. I think one was 41 cents. And I was like, so sorry, 41 cents. But the next day, someone was injured and needed their insurance. The first day it was in effect. And it was a really interesting injury. Undescribable. And that's kind of when it set in for everyone, myself included, that this was real. Most people that buy insurance off marketplace are just normal people, open enrollment, nothing's going on. A lot of times they don't use it. Most people don't do a lot of self-care with the medical field. They don't. But this whole population suddenly saw it come to use, and I've seen it so much that it started to catch on. I've insured at least one human life at every outfitter at the Ocoee River. There's 23.
Wow.
There's multiple locations that are 100% insured. Everybody on property has health insurance. And that's really important in this community.
Yeah, especially with a kind of a high risk hobby or sport as that. There's risk involved and injury involved, and so not to have health insurance, and they're paying out of pocket. And I think that was actually something really surprising to me too, with the marketplace actually. So my husband quit his job in August so we could travel the country. And I now work, but I'm self-employed, so I don't have health insurance. And we didn't know what we were going to do. We were actually just going to pull some money out of our retirement and keep it in the bank account to cover medical expenses. And then we found out we qualified for marketplace insurance, and I knew that my kids qualified. Actually, my son has type 1 diabetes, and that was super helpful because even with my husband's really good insurance, we were going to be paying $800 out of pocket for his medical supplies.
Yeah, that's so much.
And so we got them on our state insurance, but we didn't know that my husband and I would qualify. And so I talked to, somebody that does ACA, and she helped me understand, the income brackets, and, and even as a self-employed, she's like, as long as you keep your income here, and even after that, like you might be paying a little bit, and just really broke it down and helped me to understand it. Because when you go on the website and you try to apply, it's like, I don't understand what is going on. So having somebody like you to come in for these people who don't even know that they have access to health insurance, because as a river guide, you don't have insurance. Like whoever's employing you, right, is not covering you with insurance. And so really interesting that you found that niche. And I just want to dive in a little bit so you kind of found this niche almost by accident, if you will.
I did.
Which is sometimes like the best way that goes. That's how I landed in helping insurance, actually, is sort of by accident. It was never an intention. But niching down, there can be a lot of fear in niching down sometimes. And of like, oh my gosh, there's not going to be enough, or there's this fear of there's not going to be enough money or income and those kind of things. But you have proven the opposite of that. And so now, are you mostly fully servicing whitewater community? And is that people who are coming on the boats, or is it mostly the river guides? What does that look like?
Yeah, so mostly the whitewater community. I have a few referral partners across the country that have highly successful Medicare books, and I do help facilitate their clients that are near Medicare age, but primarily the whitewater community. It's a mix. The vast majority are whitewater guides. If you've ever been whitewater rafting on a commercial trip, that dirty hippie in the back is a whitewater guide, and they probably work 2 seasonal jobs across 2 states, and they're a little confused about health insurance. I also help other people in the community, bus drivers, office workers, everyone in the community generally qualifies for a $0 plan. Maybe they'll pick one, but they may pick a better plan if they look through them. But overall, it's just a whole community of people in different scenarios and their friends that are really needing a voice for insurance overall. It's led to other opportunities as well in the commercial field. So I've added that to mine. I've niched to whitewater commercial specifically, in addition to my life and health that I do. It's just
So when
been
you say whitewater commercial, what does that mean?
So there's a few different lines that I've been working on. First and foremost, we have something called Class 5 races. Class 5 rivers are the highest difficulty, minus Class 6, which you won't successfully run, so we don't talk about that. So Class 5 is the most difficult river that you'll run, and they run races on them. Last year, the company that provided insurance for them, the nonprofit organization, said we will no longer provide that type of insurance, and they did it in the middle of race season.
Oh, no.
So I got involved at that point and helped them find a location for the insurance. But this year, there was an article written on a community website about how the races were at risk due to insurance. And I was like, wait a minute, I already fixed that. So I just made a funny meme and posted it in a Facebook group for whitewater people and said, bad advice, cancel your race. Good advice, talk to me first. And it just blew up. So I'm servicing Class 5 races and then commercial outfitters. You know, they need general liability, workers' comp, things like that. Also had some contact with the major nonprofit organizations for our community. The helm of our community is the American Canoe Association, American Whitewater in Great Falls. They organize all nonprofit conservation events and guide related mental health things. And I've had communication with all of them that have reached out to me. I didn't go find them, they found me. And that's really the unique experience of this is I'm just putting it out there in the world and they're coming.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what's really interesting about getting really specific into a niche is because opportunities start to come to you because you're speaking directly to one person, right? And they're like, oh, you're the expert in this space. And I find this really unique in insurance. And I had never thought about like niching in insurance, and actually the Lisa LeBlanc, who you guys will hear on the podcast as well, they really decided, they had actually bought a book of business and decided to niche down. And so they had gotten dropped a lot of the clients they had because they wanted to be very specific. And I was like, wow, that's a really bold move, right? And but I'm learning as the more that you can niche in insurance, it seems to be very profitable and work really well, which you have proven. And so let's just talk numbers for a second. So you said when you first started your agency, it was kind of lower. You were at 50 a month, which, you know, is pretty average. But now what are your numbers at, and what does that look like?
So overall, every month is running similar to open enrollment numbers, around 50 households. But it's also bringing in other lines of business as well, life insurance, single line dental, all the things that relate to what I'm offering. So that's averaging to be about 70 households a month, which is open enrollment numbers. That's what we depend on for 3 months. We always joke that's where we make our money, those 3 months. And I figured out a way to make that, all the time.
That's amazing. And I think what's really interesting too, again, to point out is you're not buying leads. You had said you haven't bought a single lead, right? And a lot of this is coming to you.
I spent $1,400 on leads my first month of business. I said, I hate that. and I never bought any more leads. My investment at this point is buying beer and food for my parties. I throw enrollment parties a couple times a month.
I love it. Oh my
Where they
gosh.
come or I go to them. I'm heading to a different river next week to do an enrollment party for an outfitter. And that's really my cost overall, is socializing. I get to go hang out and meet my clients, and then I get to see them out on the river because I'm out there with them on the weekends.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Oh my gosh. I just think that's so fun that, and that's not everybody's, right? Not everybody is social like that. And so understanding really, like what can you niche down to, right? So if you're an agent listening to this, and what is your niche and what are you comfortable with? And I just had a conversation with somebody else. We were talking about this, is what is your comfort zone? What makes you happy? Who are the people that you want to serve and that you feel good about serving? Because when you focus on people and values first, everything else comes, versus focusing on leads and hoping that it leads to the revenue. So revenue wise, Carrie, what has that looked like for you compared to like when you were a captive agent versus like where you're at now? Is it pretty comparable? Are you making more? What does that look like for people who are thinking about making that transition?
Absolutely. So when I started in a captive agency, I was paid a $1,500 salary a month and like 2 to 4% commission. It was horrible. Let's be real. The first couple years of being an insurance agent aren't easy. They're just not. And that's because this is a grind. You have to hone and build your craft. You have to become the best at what you do. So those first couple of years, I made like $20,000 a year because I was figuring out how to sell insurance. Then I went up to like $40,000 a year 3, 50 year 4. I have definitely doubled my salary compared to last year. On trend to scale my business 6 times.
Wow, that's
6 times.
amazing.
And it's just absolutely amazing. And that it's such a natural thing. I'm hopping in a meeting. I don't know who they are, where they found me. That's the first part of the conversation, is how'd you hear about me? And it's always a personal referral, or they saw me shared on a Facebook page. And that's a really big part of this, is I'm active and engaged in Facebook communities. I have an autoimmune disease. In 2020, 2021, I didn't really go outside. I wasn't able to, and I still needed to generate business. I depended on Facebook. I really did, and that's translated well over the years because I have an active and engaged audience.
Let's talk about that for a second, because you have, in the last year, your business obviously has like taken off, but you also have had some personal transformations and some major weight loss and things like that. So I want to talk about that a little bit, because as a busy business owner, no matter what business you own, especially as females, it can be really challenging to set aside a time to take care of yourself. So just tell us a little bit about that journey. What made you decide, like, I want to change and I'm committing to this and I'm going to do this?
Yeah, so there's 2 parts, really. First and foremost, I love to listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos from people regarding topics in an educational format. And I watched one called Gear Garage, which is a little show about whitewater. And they're talking about how the biggest risk of death was being overweight in the sport. And it just kind of was like, oh, like the thing most likely to kill me is myself, because I'm not taking care of myself. I had gained a lot of weight. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. I was on high dose steroids for almost 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
It was just, I had gained like 60 pounds in a year, and it was just exhausting. I didn't feel good. My body hurt. I was always sick. And I just got tired of it. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, essentially.
Yeah.
And I just said, are you going to do something about this, or are you just going to sit here and die? Because that's kind of where you're at. And I decided to do something about it. I hired a personal trainer, could not afford that at all. But I needed it. I couldn't do one push-up. I couldn't do a sit-up. I couldn't do anything. I was so overweight and tired. So I did it. I hustled and figured out how to come up with that money every month to pay her. When I get an extra commission, I'd pay her ahead. just like it was a commitment I made to myself. And then I was also diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So I started a type 2 diabetes medication that has absolutely changed my relationship with food, how I feel about food. It's really amazing. It's in test trial Manjaro for multiple things, including food addiction, obesity, multiple things. It's really an amazing medication that I'm able to affordably obtain via marketplace insurance. I would never be able to afford that medication generally. It's quite expensive. So, and then I just gave up unhealthy lifestyle factors. I focused on cooking at home, taking the time to take care of myself. As a self-employed person, you are your biggest investment. You are your biggest asset. And I decided to treat myself as such, that the only thing that is going to make me succeed is myself. There's nobody behind me to make sure that this happens. It's all me, and I want it.
Oh, I love that. Okay, will you say that again? You are your biggest asset. Say that again.
You are your biggest asset and your biggest investment.
I love it. You are your biggest asset and your biggest investment. And yeah, 100%. And I think so our business is success without sacrifice. And the reason is because what we find is a lot of women end up sacrificing themselves, either whether it's for their success, whether it's for their relationships or their kids or whatever it is. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice myself, right? It just happens over time from stress and just a lack of intention. So I love that you were like, I'm done. I don't want to feel this way anymore. And I want to invest in me. How has that changed your productivity in business and how you feel and what you're able to do?
I used to have the hardest time getting out of bed. I was one of those people that needed 10 alarms to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning to be to work at 9. I just was. And now I'm springing out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, ready for the day, ready to work. And it's just this amazing feeling of just continually wanting to know what comes next. I did that. What can I do now? It's highly motivating to see that change within. There was, the cycle of change. Stephen Covey teaches about it, that while you're in the cycle of change, it's uncomfortable, it's weird, things go wrong, that it's natural and organic for that to be the cycle of change. And you need to overcome that into the growth period. And honestly, growing a business at this scale and losing 115 pounds in 1 year was extremely uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable. Like, becoming someone that people don't recognize, I'd have to introduce myself, was strange. But it was also motivating, because if I could do that, what else can I do?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Love it. That's I love that it all kind of came together at the same time of when you decided to focus on you, and what you do in one area of life is how you do everything, right? And so um you, as business owners, it's so important to put yourselves first. And everybody thinks that once I hit this level of success, then I can take care of myself. Once I hit this goal, once I hit this revenue and I get this income, then I'll have the relationships, or then I'll take care of myself, then. But you can't wait until then. It has to be now. And that's what's going to make the change. And so I love your story so much, Carrie, like everything about it. So I just want to talk a little bit about, you had said the first couple of years of being an insurance agent, it takes time. And this is a conversation that's been coming up a lot with people in their interview is we see in groups, people are like, oh, I need to get more leads, or why am I not making the money? Or I want to make this transition, but I'm scared. And we have to understand, in business, no matter what business, it takes time. It takes time to learn the skill set. And even if you are an expert in something and then you start a business, in some ways you're starting over. Yes, you have that experience, right? But learning to be a business owner is a whole different thing, and takes a level of dedication and commitment. And that's why most businesses fizzle out in the first 3 to 5 years, is because they think that it's just going to be this immediate success. And for you, yes, you started your agency a year ago and you've had incredible success in the year, but there was a whole lot of time before that of learning and growing and, you know, and all of that. So I love that you pointed that out of it is hard and it takes work. But at the same time, if you start to invest in yourself, that is what's going to make the change, right? Whether that's investing in yourself to take that leap and start an agency and go on your own, right? But it's not always going to be easy. So, Carrie, what for somebody who is maybe just starting an agency or they're trying to decide, do they want to make the transition from working for somebody else to doing their own thing? What advice do you have for them?
First and foremost, it'd be find your people. Though we are solo entrepreneurs to start out, generally, you don't generally start with a staff. It's usually just you and your computer. That doesn't mean you're alone in this industry. My best friends and my closest colleagues are other insurance agency owners and people that have the success that I want, that I can go and ask them, how did you do this? May I have your advice? I think having proper mentorship is the most important thing you can do for your business to succeed. I mentor multiple agents, and the ones that put the time and energy into having a relationship and learning things are the ones that really excel, the ones that ask me questions. And I ask my mentors a lot of questions, maybe not necessarily about insurance, but more about business things. How can I develop? How can I grow? And I think that's really the difference in my agency and maybe some others that are at the same period of time of being open and not seeing success, is I ask the people that have what I want how they did it, and then I take their advice and I do it. If I'm given a window or a door of opportunity, I take it. And I just remember that it's all building to something. Just because today didn't feel like the day that anything happened didn't mean I didn't set the footwork for something amazing tomorrow. Also just knowing that being kind to yourself is highly important when you're a business owner, because you are your own worst critic. You will criticize yourself to death when you own a business. And also to know when to ask for help, when it's time to bring in additional help, and when it's time to call your business investable and scalable. I recently brought in a VA and a media specialist because I had the realization that my business was scalable, but I needed to move from a one-to-one method to a one-to-many. I needed to be able to duplicate my work.
Tell us a little bit about that. I actually want to dive into that a little bit. How are you duplicating your work? What does that look like for your specific niche?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost is bringing in a VA CSR. I truly believe that bringing in the people that are strong where you're weak is what makes your agency or your own business grow and succeed, is knowing what your limits are and that maybe it's not the best use of your time. So bringing in the VA CSR was the big one, so that I could have somebody take over my data entry because I don't like it. Also bringing in a media person, because that's where my agency excels, is through content creation and media. So that taking that off my plate so I can focus more on the putting it out in the world and less on the design. And then also being hyper focused on finding the right producer, which is where I'm at with my agency right now, is finding my producer so I can step from selling to just generation of business.
Oh, I love it so much because, and this is like one of the big things that I find with women is that release of control. And really leaning into your zone of genius, because in order to scale, you have to take on a CEO role, right? You have to step more into that. You have to stop doing all the things and allow other people to come in and fill in the things that you are not good at, right? And even if you're good at something, doesn't mean that it's your zone of genius, right? So, and Carrie, what I hear from you, your zone of genius is building connections and relationships, and going out and building these relationships with, you know, whether it's whoever it is in the whitewater community, and by knowing and understanding who you need to bring in that allows you to do that, like that's where the scalability comes. So I love that you broke that down for us, because I think people get caught up in well, I have to do it, or I'm the only one that can do it the right way. And yes, maybe you have a certain way that you want to do it, but that doesn't mean that somebody else can't actually do it better, even if it's different than your way. So I love that you broke that down, and that you are, making those changes and bringing the right people in, to really step into that and to make your agency scalable. So what are kind of your what's your kind of like your 5-year goal? What's your plan? What are you hoping to what is uh, Covered with Carrie look like in 5 years?
So the whitewater community's just changed my life. I've spent my life on food stamps, on Medicaid, not having enough. Truly, I have. And the last few months has shown me that though Affordable Care Act insurance pays very slowly, you can see the end. You know it's coming, that they're changing my life. They truly are. And I'm going to change theirs back. My goal is to go to a different river every single year. And I'm going to find somebody and make them an insurance agent. And I'm going to leave them behind. So that there's somebody there to take care of my community, but also to build their own business and have the same opportunity I did. Because the only reason I had this success is because people in this industry believed in me. They supported me even though they didn't have to. And I want to do the same for them.
I love that. That's one of the things I love about the insurance industry is everybody is so like giving of their time. It's really like amazing to me, and wanting to help other people come up in the industry. You don't see that a lot in a lot of industries, and
You
that's
know,
one thing that I've found that's really really unique, about the insurance industry, and whether that's really serving and having a heart to serve and help clients, or it's serving and helping other agents to come up. And I that's just one of the things that like I love so much about the insurance industry. I think it's really incredible, and just women supporting women, and men and women too, but really, women supporting women, I think is really fantastic. I was going to say one other thing that you had said. Oh yes, okay, so one thing I wanted to point out too is you had said when you decided, I want to make a change with my health, I don't want to feel this way anymore. You said, I didn't have the money. I didn't have the money to hire a personal trainer. And that is the excuse for a lot of us when it comes to change, right? I remember a point where I knew I needed counseling, and I was like, I don't have the money. I can't afford it. But I knew I didn't have a choice. I had to. And it worked out, right? Like you figure it out when you make the decision to transform or change your life, to invest in yourself, even if you can't see where the money is going to come from, it always pays out in the end. And because you invested that money, even though you didn't have that money, you knew that it was going to change your life, and it has changed your life and the trajectory of your business. Because, I mean, and you can speak to this, but I imagine if you were, you had that extra 100 pounds on you and you were feeling crappy like you were a year ago, do you feel like your business would be where it is right now?
no, not at all. First and foremost, I wouldn't be able to be out on the river at the level I'm at. I'm able to run rivers that I couldn't a year ago, that they would have killed me. Not only that, I feel good. When you have an autoimmune, that's not always promised, but these days I feel good 98% of the time instead of 20% of the time. But I think the most important change I made was mental, that I was going to love myself and accept myself, that I was enough, that regardless of outcome, all I knew is I want this and I'm going to work for it. And that was really freeing, was that I gave myself the ability to set up boundaries to make that happen. If something is not part of my journey, I do not accept it.
Yes, yes, yes. Boundaries. And, we always hear, I don't have time, I don't have money. It's not that you don't have time and money, it's that you don't have boundaries set around to protect that time, to protect that money. That's really what it comes down to. So I'm really glad that you pointed that out. And you said one other thing. Oh gosh, Carrie, you have so many little nuggets. I like should be writing this down, that I keep thinking like, oh my gosh, I want to pull that out and talk about it. Shoot, now I can't remember what it was, but anyway, I just think your story and everything about it, I think, is really incredible and really inspirational for people who are whether it's their self-care journey or whether it's their business journey or whatever it is. Oh, I just remembered it. You talked about, it's not about the weight. It's not about the weight loss, right? It is about the weight loss. It's not about looking a certain way. That's not what is making you feel good. It's not about being skinny. It's about the way you feel. And as women in this society, in this culture, we get so caught up in, I have to lose weight so I can look good, right? So other people think I look good, but in reality, it's about how you feel about yourself and that self-love. Like you just said, I'm going to love myself regardless of the outcome. That's where the transformation comes. And I think even when we talk about a revenue goal, right, is you can get so focused on getting the revenue or getting the weight loss that you forget what it's really about. Like, what is that revenue goal going to do for you? It's not about chasing the money. It's not about having that money sitting in your bank account. It's about that money is to help you live your life. And when you get so caught up in chasing something that you forget to take care of yourself, that's where the disconnect comes in. So I love that you really focused on the self-love aspect, because when you can learn to love yourself first, that's where the real transformation comes in and the results will start to come in. So Carrie, thank you so much for being here. Do you have any last words of advice or anything that you want to say to anybody that might be listening?
Yeah, I do. I think I just want to say the most important thing you can do if you want to succeed is sit down and figure out what your end result looks like and then work from there. How are you going to get there? And determine if it's really what you want, because the journey is amazing, but it's hard. Success is not easy, but you have to truly choose your heart. It's hard to be overweight. It's hard to be in shape. It's hard to have a poorly ran business, and it's hard to have a successful business. Everything's hard. It's just choosing which hard you want and which one you're going to work for, because it's work to fail and it's work to succeed.
100%. Oh my gosh, that was like the perfect close. I love it. If people want to connect with you, Carrie, where can they reach out to you?
First and foremost, please send me a friend request on Facebook, Carrie Grace Soulliere, Soulliere. And also my email is carrie@coveredwithcarrie.com. I'd love to chat with you in either direction. Please feel free to reach out and connect.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast today. We know there is a lot on your plate, so it means the world to us that you stopped in to give us a listen. We hope you will join us each week as we dive into topics such as mindset, goal setting, productivity, self-care, and so much more. We want to inspire more women to have success without sacrificing what is most important to them, and we need your help. If this podcast has inspired you, would you do us a favor? Would you take a minute to leave us a rating and a review or share with your friends? Let's change the face of insurance for women. Until next time.